Nagatsi hinu ang. My Haida name is Fox. Dong esh de good lagang. I'm happy to see you. Welcome to number 9 edition of Haida Language and Etymology. Today we're going to be talking about Haida lunar calendars, which is something that's really exciting and fascinating to me. And before we dive into that, I kind of want to go over what is a homonym. So, in linguistics, homonyms are defined as homographs, words that share the same spelling regardless of pronunciation, or homophones, words that share the same pronunciation regardless of spelling, or both. So, one of the things that I have noticed and find fascinating in Haida is that the word for month, kung, is the same as the word for moon. That's kung, right? Kung. A month is a moon, essentially. Full moon, then, is kung isk. Okay, fun to say. What is a lunar calendar? A lunar calendar is a system of measurement that is based on the monthly cycles or the phases of the moon. And historically, when we talk about lunar calendars, they have helped Proto-Indo-European peoples plan agricultural events. Or, in the case of the Haida, a lunar calendar helps to plan subsistence and seasonal changes. What we're doing culturally, right? How we're preparing for the seasons as they change. So, historically, the Haida called a full yearly cycle a sang, or tada, cold, meaning winter, right? So, we're going to go over some language that talks about winter and time relative to winter, and let's jump right into that. So, our first word is asanga, last winter, asanga, and sangadai, the beginning of winter, sangadai. We have sangada, to commemorate or celebrate, right? We associate celebrations with yearly, right, annual practices, sangada. And we have sang, which could be early November to early February, or could mean a year, a full yearly cycle. Then we have sangesh, for winter to come, sangesh. And we have sanga, sanga, to be winter, sangad, to be winter now, sangad, and tada, winter or year. Some sentences using winter and year in them are, and if I stumble over these, you'll have to forgive me because they're not all easy. And transitioning, mostly the challenge is transitioning from English to Haida, which you can change again. The posture of your mouth changes. So code switching actually is an additional challenge, and we haven't talked about that much in this class, but it's something we should probably remember, as that indigenous people are often expected to be able to code switch, and linguistically it's really not easy to go from speaking a native language to speaking English and back again without stumbling over your words, right? So that's an additional challenge that I, for example, as a non-native person, don't run into a lot unless I'm doing a video like this where I'm going back and forth. So yeah, just awareness. Take a sidestep for awareness, but that's okay. So back to our sentences. So this is, he stays out at camp all winter, right? And that sounds like clang Tlagan tla au sang sachask hal I jangang. He stays out at camp all winter. I'll try that again. Tlagan sa au sang sahask hal ijangang. And we also have sang sahask u sahangulasang. I'll work all year. Sang sahask u sahangulasang. So, why does this matter? Why do lunar calendars matter if we're talking about language also? Lunar calendars help us match our behavior to our environment. They help us understand and measure the passage of time, like I've talked about. If we're even describing a calendar in Haida, we don't say, one word. We say kung kuganai, or literally moon, book, or map. It could probably be translated as a book of moons or a map of moons, the literal translation. You would have to ask an indigenous Haida person how they think that should best be translated. But when I came across that, I just thought it was like such a romantic way of describing a year. And I tend to think the translation should probably be more a map of moons rather than a book, because when we describe natural features, indigenous toponyms tend to be, very topographical. They describe like the land, whereas, in non-native traditions, we tend to name things after people and whatnot. So I think that a good interpretation of how to say calendar in Haida, Kunkuganai, would really be map of moons. I'm really interested to hear what my teachers think about that idea too, but I think that's kind of beautiful. Some phrases that I came across in the Haida phrase book that use the word moon are, for example, Kungai hal Ustayan, he stole the moon. Kungai hal Ustayan. And we have my child is 1 month old, which sounds like Digit Kungai Sahwansangang. Digit Kungai Sahwansangang. So, Haida seasonal orientations in Southeast Alaska. I would like to share a chart with you guys, which is sort of an additional thing to this, talking about lunar calendars and Haida months, which I feel like this information isn't very accessible. So if I can kind of like throw out stuff I've come across in my research, that is a good thing to do. So I'm going to share this chart with you. That the information on it comes largely from Swanton in 1903. As he observed the Haida, how they viewed their calendar in the early 1900s. So what we're about to be talking about does not reflect Haida seasonal practices today or views, but I feel like it can be really informative when we're talking about the environment, or for Native people who want to learn more about their history and might not have, all of the piles of articles that I have in my files. So let's take a look at this. Are local calendars valid? What do we think about a local calendar? So if you do a thought experiment with me for a second. When we go to the grocery store, you pass Farmer's Almanac and maybe you buy one, and you never think about how that is a version of a local calendar, and how much a lot of that information in a Farmer's Almanac is probably informed by, indigenous practices. So look at this chart as a sort of historical farmer's almanac that the Haida would have used to orient their life and their interaction with the environment. Some facts for you are the Haida ceremonial calendar is composed of 13 months, 2 periods of 6 months with a floating month intercalcated between them that serves the purpose of adjusting for seasonal variation. The entire cycle is called a cold, meaning a winter, and this cycle begins with the summer sequence, most notably in April, and recommences with the winter months, okay? And that's from Swanton, 1903. The series of monthly periods probably have been slightly different, would be slightly different in different locations in order to accommodate natural variance, right? So this calendar, the way they would have organized this calendar for themselves in their, minds and practices, that would probably be different in Southeast Alaska than it would be in Haida Gwaii per se. So the variability of this is really important to understand. It's not a standard issue like this is how Haida people view their calendar at all. So each month is a moon, which suggests also that each month is more or less a 28-day duration. And that is taken from Lachler 2010. So the Haida seasonal calendar. While there's no way to perfectly reconstruct the belief or ritual meanings of most Alaska Native cultures pre-contact, knowledge of their practices, environmental awareness, and ritual language can be of profound benefit to Indigenous peoples, particularly those of Haida descent, as well as researchers and anyone interested in Southeast Alaskan ecology. Our calendars frame our sense of time and the way we think about and relate to our environment. As climate change begins to alter ecosystems in many areas, we can observe these changes by comparing modern populations of plants and animals with plants and animals in the local ecologies of Indigenous peoples. So that's a lot of information, but I just wanted to share it with you, and all of the source material that I have used in the lunar calendar, as well as the upcoming Haida tidal calendar, which we'll be talking about next time, can be found in the description below. All of this has been compiled through my research on Haida subsistence and seasonality through UAS, and I just want to share it and maybe make people think a little bit about how, the way we see a year might be different if we spoke differently about it. So don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell, and thank you for listening. Damanagan Kingu, House Dang King Sang.